Satellite imagery of what could be the wreckage of Flight 370 in the Indian Ocean. Michelle Obama arrives in China for a visit, and 2 suspects in the Kevin Lau attack case appear in court.
Good evening. Australia has discovered a promising lead to what might be wreckage from the missing Malaysia Airlines plane. At the same time, the United States is picking apart the 2 pilots' computers and a flight simulator to determine if foul play should be considered. This is the satellite imagery Australia detected of 2 large objects bobbing in the remote part of the Indian Ocean. One is about 24 meters long and the other 5 meters. Australia immediately scrambled 4 military search planes to scour the area and determine if the objects are wreckage from the missing jetliner.
That AMSA is doing its level best to find anyone that may have survived. If indeed the aircraft came into the southern corridor, and if indeed these objects sighted by satellite are associated with the aircraft, that will put us into a more accurate search area than the one we have at the moment.
But Australia's Prime Minister was sure to warn the masses not to get their hopes up just yet.
The task of locating these objects will be extremely difficult, and it may turn out that they are not related to the search for flight MH370.
The life of a black box alert system only lasts 30 days underwater. If the missing plane met its demise at sea, only 18 days of battery life remain on its black box pingers designed to alert search crews to its location. So, with time ticking fast, Malaysian authorities have asked the United States for help with examining the 2 pilots' computer data.
With regard to the plane crash, we are working with the authorities in Malaysia. We're trying to offer whatever assistance that we can.
At interest are the captain's deleted flight simulator files that could explain where the missing plane is.
Some data has been deleted from the simulator, and forensic work to retrieve this data is ongoing.
One massive area search crews can cross off their list is China. After reviewing its radar data, China is confident Flight 370 never crossed any of its territory.
European Union leaders are set to begin 2 days of critical talks to discuss their next move in the Crimean crisis, while Russia and the West dig in for what appears to be a long confrontation over the contested peninsula. There are worries Moscow may have further ambitions in the region. James Aiken reports.
The head of Russia's Black Sea Fleet is greeted by cheers as he arrives at Ukrainian naval headquarters in Crimea, shortly after it was taken over by Russian troops. The scene reflects what appears to be inevitable as Ukraine surrenders more control of the strategic peninsula to Russia. The other front in the battle for Crimea is the UN Security Council.
The declaration of independence by the Crimean Republic is a direct consequence of the application of the use of force and threats against Ukraine by the Russian Federation.
The reunification is in compliance with international law and democratic procedures, says Russian UN Ambassador Vitaly Churkin. The people of Crimea have a right to self-determination. Following Sunday's referendum, Moscow is moving quickly to absorb Crimea. With the White House ruling out a military response, the emphasis is on punitive measures for now. But the Kremlin has mocked visa restrictions and asset freezes of 21 Russian and Crimean officials. So the U.S. and the European Union are looking for ways to turn the screws tighter.
We are prepared to take additional steps if Russian aggression or Russian provocations continue.
But there is no consensus among European leaders about tougher financial sanctions. And because some nations have closer economic ties to Russia, any Russian retaliation will hit them harder. Meanwhile, there are worries that Crimea may not be the only item on Moscow's shopping list.
My major concern is that this won't stop So, of course, our major concern now is whether he will go beyond Crimea, whether Russia will intervene in the eastern parts.
Moscow says it'll complete legal moves to absorb Crimea by the end of the week. With the situation no longer business as usual in Eastern Europe, EU leaders are hoping for unity and will as they meet to plot their next move. James Aiken, TVB News.
World stock markets tumbled following the first news conference of new U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen. This after Yellen indicated interest rates may rise sooner than analysts expected. Alan Booknia reports.
Janet Yellen said the U.S. economy is improving enough that the Fed can continue to pull back on its bond buying program. It's been adding liquidity into the markets to stimulate the economy. She said the monthly purchases will be reduced by $10 billion to $55 billion, down from a peak of $85 billion. The program is on track to stop by the end of the year.
As before, if incoming information broadly supports the committee's expectation of ongoing improvement in labor markets and inflation moving back over time toward its longer-run objective, the committee will likely continue to reduce the pace of asset purchases in measured steps at future meetings.
But Yellen seemed caught off guard when she was asked how soon the record near-zero interest rates would start to rise once the bond buying program ends.
This is the kind of term it's hard to define, but, probably means something on the order of around 6 months or that type of thing. But
that comment caught analysts by surprise, since they weren't expecting a rate hike that early. It sent stock markets tumbling even before Yellen could qualify her words.
But, it depends. What the statement is saying is it depends what conditions are like. We need to see where the labor market is. How close are we to our full employment goal?
That the Fed's on pace to remove accommodative policy and that eventually they're going to raise interest rates. In fact, one of the negative aspects of today's Fed meeting was that the Fed increased the timing or the amount of rate hikes that we're going to see and pushed them forwards.
On the markets, the Dow Jones dropped 0.7% to close at 16,222. The S&P 500 went down 0.6% to 1,860, and the Nasdaq closed down 0.6% at 4,307. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index dropped 1.7% to close at 21,182. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama has arrived in Beijing for a week-long visit to China. She is accompanied by her 2 daughters, Malia and Sasha. Michelle Obama's schedule includes a speech at Peking University, plus visits to Xi'an and Chengdu. She will spend tomorrow with Peng Liyuan, the wife of President Xi Jinping.
The 2 suspects involved in the knife attack on former Mingpao chief editor Kevin Lau appeared in court today to face wounding and theft charges. The magistrate has adjourned the case until next Tuesday. Neither defendant has applied for bail and both have been remanded in police custody. Stephanie Choi reports.
The 2 defendants, Yip Kim Wah and Wang Chi Wah, were brought to Eastern Magistracy this morning. Both men are 37 years old and both claimed they are plumbers. They have been charged with unlawfully and maliciously wounding Kevin Lau in Saiwan Ho on February 26th. They also face a charge of theft for stealing a motorcycle in Fanling between February 12th and 13th. Their lawyers said today they would object to the cautioned statements and all alleged admissions while in police custody. The lawyer claimed the admissions were not made voluntarily, but rather under police threats, assaults, inducement, and oppression. The lawyer also said when the 2 defendants were interviewed by the police for the first time after they were handed over to Hong Kong by mainland authorities, they had no legal representatives accompanying them. The hearing has been adjourned to next Tuesday, March 25th. The defendants will stand in an identification parade. The prosecution said the victim of the attack, Kevin Lau, will not be taking part in the identification parade as he could not see the assailants who came up from behind him. The police will arrange for other witnesses for that purpose. If found guilty, the defendants could face a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
Police have arrested a 30-year-old man in connection with the attack on 2 executives of the soon-to-be-launched newspaper Hong Kong Morning News. Someone spotted this car parked in Wong Tai Sin near Lion Rock Country Park this morning with its windows down and the cap to its petrol tank opened. The police were alerted. Officers said later the car is linked to yesterday's attack on the newspaper executives in Tsim Sha Tsui East. Police searched the area and took away at least 2 pair of gloves. The vice president and director of Hong Kong Morning News, Lei Lun Han, and another executive, Lam Kin Ming, were beaten by 4 masked men wielding metal pipes near the Science Museum at around 1 p.m. yesterday.
And still ahead in our newscast, protesters still occupying Taiwan's legislative building. 12 arrested in connection with counterfeit facial masks, and political reform proposals from Hong Kong 2020.